So today the plan is to do a slightly more tutorial-like version of how to go from a photograph to I can't put my finger above it, but to this combined image. Hello Vino, welcome, hope you're doing well. So first things first, that's what I'm going towards, is this sort of image here. And going to go through the process. So I'm going to show you in Photoshop prepping some files towards this and then how it functions in the cutting functionality. So first things first, you need a photograph, ideally something that's pretty forward facing and simple. The more straightforward, the sort of more cohesive the outcome will be, but you can mess around with doing this with different positions or multiple photographs that combine the image and distort it in different ways. So when you have, I'm just going to go using Photoshop to do this. So let's pull up Photoshop and take down this image. So I took this selfie and pretty straightforward with it. Generally clear background. It's not the best, but this one's kind of distorted and you can clean it up on your own after the fact. But something that doesn't have a similarly colored background is like the edge of my hair, because otherwise it won't do a great selection. You can go select. I need to select, where is subject? Select subject. And it will give you a general outline. Depending on your image, it'll be better or worse quality wise, but that's a very simple way to create something else. And you can go about duplicating this or isolating it a few different ways. Just for ease on my part, what I did was Command J jumps it to a new layer and isolates it. That's destructive editing. If you want to do it a little bit better, you can duplicate the layer and then apply a layer mask, and you'll have the same sort of thing, but the overall size of the image and copying and pasting it is a little bit more complicated at times. So I have this just jumped as a destructive editing layer, and then grab whatever area you want using the selection tool. I'm just using the rectangular selection tool, and then I'm going to copy it, Command C, Command N for a new file. I was on the wrong layer. I need to be on this layer. Command C, copy it, Command N, new, and paste it, and now I have that image here. I already messed with this a few ways, so I'm gonna come back over here. Because I'm printing using a black and white laser printer, I went ahead and converted it to, or removed all the color attributes, which this is still an RGB format color space, but I just removed all saturation, which the shortcut for that is Command Shift U, and that'll remove all the color. So I have this isolated thing here. Now I'm going to create a grid. So for that, I'm going to make a new file and just make this 1 pixel wide and 100 tall. Now I'm going to come in here close, and I'm going to use my rectangular selection tool and make a selection that is, I'm just going to make it 5 pixels tall, and then I'm going to fill this in, Option D, or Option Delete, or backspace depending on what it is, and we have this just sort of very simple thing where it's a long strip that's white and then black. Select all of that, Command A, go Edit, Define Pattern, make a new pattern, and so now you have a pattern that will repeat. It'll tile this in this sort of direction. I'm going to come back to this image, make a new layer, Command Shift New, or you can also click down here And now I'm going to edit fill. The shortcut for that is Shift F5. I'm gonna do a pattern and select that custom pattern that we just made, and you'll end up with this line here. I'm gonna change the blending mode. Hey, Eska and Josh. I didn't know. You said, or Eska said multiple people last time, but didn't know who it was. So hello, Josh. So I can see what this is going to be cutting across. I'm going to change the blending mode to darken. Now I'm going to transform this, Command T, free transform, and I'm going to rotate it holding Shift. Will give me different increments, and I'm going to do it 60 degrees. And then I'm going to hold Option to make it so it adjusts the size from the middle. But I'm also going to hold Shift so that it lets me do it where it only affects this direction. I'm going to move this a little bit so it covers the entirety of the portrait. And then I'm going to hit Enter. I'm going to duplicate this layer with Command J, then free transform again, and rotate it in the opposite direction to create a diamond grid. And again, make it so it covers the entire image there. So I have what will end up being here. Behind, I guess I didn't really, or you do need to have darken on to make it so they intertwine. And now I'm going to give a little bit of a buffer around the figure so that for the final item there's going to be less of those lines in close proximity. I could make it a little bit better than what I ended up having, but anyway, if you hold Command and click the layer thumbnail, it'll do a full selection of whatever is on that layer. I'm going to go select, modify, expand, and I have it set to 30 pixels. That gives me a little bit of a buffer. I'm going to make a new layer, drag it behind the active layer, and hit Command Delete, with your default colors being black as the primary color and white as the secondary. Command Delete will fill in that selection with that. So now we have this outline with a grid pattern that will be where we cut. So now I'm going to merge all the visible layers together. Select that top layer, do Command Shift E, Command A, copy this, and now I'm going to open up a new print file that's just a standard letter size. I'm going to paste this in, and I'm going to come back here, undo what I just did, turn off that grid, merge it all together so that the overall size is the same dimensions. Command A, Command C, select it all and then copy it. And now I'm going to tile these into a grid. So I'm going to, I'll just paste it again, drag it down, paste it a third time, and follow these guides to position it so that it creates a grid. Now I'm going to merge these all together, Command E on all those. And now let's transform this, free transform, make it so it's along this middle guy here, and then holding Option, resize it so that it all fits within here. And now it's printing. I printed it using a black and white laser printer because that's what I have that has the cheapest printing, and it also creates more of a pattern with the print itself because it's a single color in a lower resolution. So you can print this out, making sure that whatever margin you have on the side of your printer, you can either resize it to where it fits within the full structure, or you can adjust the positioning of it and have it printed at 100%, which is what I typically do, but you need to adjust whatever your printout is to where you're not cutting into your images or to your grid to the point where you can't utilize it. So now that we have this file prepped, we will come to this guy and start cutting it into its pieces. So first things first, why I only have a grid on the top one is because I only need it on one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this into 4 pieces and generally arrange them so that they all line up. And I'm going to use the edge of this as a general guide for repositioning these, and then tape them all flat together, then cut them up as I move along. So first things first, I'm going to use the edge of this grid. You could also make a more clear line if you want to, but don't need it. It doesn't need to be perfect. So I'm going to actually cut still within the middle here so that I have a little bit of paper on the edge. I should replace this blade. I'll replace this blade before I start cutting into the rest of this. And now, cut along this line. So now I have 4 copies of the same image, because that was a little bit of a physical drag. I'm gonna replace this blade. Something good to do with blades that are used is to tape them, usually with something a little bit more robust, but so you don't have wherever if you're throwing it in the garbage, just so you don't have a loose sharp edge. It's good to have that. If you're recycling it, you should be able to, depending on where you are, because it's just a steel blade. I didn't know this was an Elmer thing. Anyway, but put it in a place where it's safe and protected, like a safety razor sort of thing. There's a little bit of oil on X-Acto blades when you have them fresh to help them from rusting, but that's why I wiped it just with my fingers so that I wouldn't have as much oil on there. So next step, what I'm going to do is, these don't have to be perfectly aligned. You could make it so they fall exactly on top of one another, but it's not necessary for this process. So I'm going to put this down, and I'm just going to tape the edges so that everything stays in place, but I still have enough of reference so I can see the cutting guides that I have here. That's what the diamond pattern's for. Taping this down, and now I'm going to be using a decent amount of tape. You could use other approaches. This is just the easiest way that I have found. Well, I'm not using this. Let's put this away. And what I'm going to do is, this will end up being 4 times this size, so twice as wide and twice as tall as this small image, so about 8.5 by 11. A little bit less. So this is 12 inches tall. I'll try and give myself a little bit more space. So what I'm going to do is just pull out this tape, tear it down, have it face up, and then tape it down with some tape on top of it. And this will be my working surface. Let's make it so this lines up with this edge. just makes it a little bit easier and aesthetically nice in that way. This does not have to be perfect at all. This is just a top-facing sticky surface, and after you get that first one down, it's a little bit easier to tack down the second piece because you can use the top-facing stickiness of the piece before it. You can try to get away without taping each piece down, but I've had more success when I tape everything down. Whatever overlap you feel most comfortable with, and you can also come back in and add more tape after the fact. But this is what I found. I'm guessing that you could buy, I was curious and was going to look at it, buying sheets of sticky tape or something. You could also do this with glue, but that's going to be a little bit more chaotic and messy, and you'll also distort the paper itself. I'm just using like regular printer paper, nothing special, and so the paper's pretty thin. It warps a bit, so if you were using glue, that moisture would affect the strength and the surface of the paper, because that moisture will make it warp a bit. It expands the paper and it gets wiggly, which you can use to your advantage, or you can do it a little bit more carefully if you have a better understanding of it. How wide is this image? 3.5, 7. I'm going to do one more piece of tape because it just is a little bit safer with it. Gives me a little bit more of a buffer. You miss cassette tapes? You can buy them online, still pretty easy. Mine's playing still, right? Audio's coming through, yeah. They got some appeal in nostalgic markets. I wanted to have something that I could physically manipulate a bit and record directly to and have a certain aesthetic. I also like that with cassette tapes you can record directly to it and then visually see the progression of it pretty clearly. It's not super clear in that little thumbnail happening there, but you can see the tape winding as it progresses. Bought a bunch of tape with the intention of doing more of these. A bunch of this mess. I'm not going to get up here. I have to take this down. Just a little piece more so that it holds it down. I've learned more about cassette tapes in the past few months, how they function, and that there's actually different types of cassette tapes, which I did not know for some time. I just was like, there's cassette tapes and that's it. I'm actually going to adjust that cassette tape camera so you can see it slightly more clearly. Give me a moment. Widescreen. Get that focus just a little bit nicer. It's slightly off center. Let me adjust that position. Oh, and I don't have the light on. That'll do it. And let's get that a little darker. You can see a little bit more in there. Okay. So this next part, I need to find my tweezers. That'll make this a much easier endeavor. Having tweezers? Oh, there they are. They're right here. Okay, so you can do this without these tools, but these tools make it a lot easier. X-Acto blade, metal ruler. If you try to do it with a wooden ruler, then there's a chance you'll cut into the side of it. Same with the plastic ruler. Masking tape. And that's most of it. So what we're doing is we're cutting this same image into a bunch of smaller sections that tessellate evenly into a pattern of 4, which is why we have 4 copies of the same image here. And what we're doing is we're taking this section and we're duplicating it 4 times. And just doing it in a physical manner. So for ease of this, I'm going to work sort of in a direction. So I'm going to first just cut a bunch of these strips, but leave them all attached at the top, and then eventually this side. And then I'm going to come back and piece by piece separate them, because otherwise it's chaotic and very difficult to track what it is that you have if you don't have it fully connected still. So we're just making sure we cut through these, and then we're going to the next line in this diagonal, doing the same thing, not cutting all the way through to the top, leaving it intact so that it's all connected. And there's a chance I'm not cutting this all the way through, and I might have to come back later and clean up some aspects of it, but now the next line. Next line. This is a tedious process overall. If it's not tedious, then is it my work? Sometimes. I tend to work kind of in tedious manners. This process sort of imitates how computers sometimes resize images, and different theories and approaches to resizing images and changing how it is, because any image that you have being displayed on a digital display, it's on a grid, and there are different issues that come up with. I was worried I wasn't recording. Different images or issues that come up with resizing something that has a set defined like grid pattern to it. And so there's different ways that things get resized, or correctly or incorrectly. And so if you're working with like a perfect grid, the idea would be, like the immediate sort of idea is just double everything, but then you have weird issues that come up with that, or having everything, or if you're scaling something at not a perfect double or half, then you have to find solutions. And I don't know 100% have a clear understanding of that, but there's a lot of different process that takes place just with scaling and resizing things, and having issues with like murraying, stuff like that. Getting a little tight up here next to this. So this is preliminary. It's still all intact. All of these pages are not, they're all one piece still because they're connected along this edge here. They also are taped down, so it adds extra sort of insurance and structure in that regard. And one more cut down here. So now we have, this is cut into a bunch of different strips, but for ease I have it taped down. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one single diamond part. First I'm going to cut this diagonal so that I free up some bits, and then I'm going to cut just this. I'll go this one first. Just this outside diagonal. So now I have 4 copies of the same little bit of paper. There's a chance that, nope, I cut most of the way through. Not quite on this top edge. But I'm going to take these pieces and rearrange them as 4 pieces of diamond. So I'm going to start over in this corner and just sort of arbitrarily find a spot. And I'm going to take the other 3 pieces and arrange them in a diamond pattern. It's easier with tweezers to do this because they're a little bit more delicate. And now we just start working on expanding this grid. So what I'm going to do next is grab this one, and whatever relationship this diamond has to the previous diamond will be its positioning to the diamond. So this one is right here, and this next one I'm going to grab is down here. So I'm going to place these next pieces in that positioning next to it. So now let's, using this grid, cut this next little section. This is where it starts to get more time consuming and meticulous. Not that it wasn't already. So you can follow the lines and fill out the grid. And it's just changing those. You're just multiplying a small section and working from there. So now let's cut the next diamond section out, which will be this one right here. And this is directly above this one and to the top left of that first diamond, so we will just follow suit and position it accordingly. And I'll be doing this for a while. So if you have any questions, concerns, curiosities, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer. This is just a more tedious time. And part of the process. So this one is down to the left, immediately to the left of that first diamond. Right now it looks more abstracted in this space, but it'll get a little bit more representational visually. You'll be able to see the stuff more clearly once I get up into this section, but it will be a little while before we get there. Did I cut that for you? I don't believe I did. So I actually need to cut down here. Didn't quite get through here. Let's free this. Cautiously get this out. For my aesthetic, I like the bits of imperfection that come about from doing this process by hand, but if you're wanting this to be perfect, I would do it digitally. But the little bits of inconsistencies and issues that come about by placement and stuff like that are a large appeal of the process to me. And it makes for a more interesting visual as things are getting put together. And you can obviously do this with a color photograph. I'm a black and white person when it comes to, well, I am a white person, but when it comes to my aesthetics, I tend to work in black and white, but this could be striking using color. You could also try and utilize different color spaces, or like separate out the sections, like the color form. So if like you were prepping a file and using CMYK, you could separate out those colors and mess with how visually it all works together. There's different options you can work on. Different approaches. It's just diamond by diamond, or section by section, and then 4 diamonds by 4 diamonds. I don't know if I cut through all that. Did I? Cut through some of it. Not quite all of it. I just wanted to make sure I had an understanding of the orientation of this spot, because the fabric, just the texture of my shirt, is a little bit harder to visually identify. It's easier to accidentally invert, make it upside down. Next one. Next one. That's just what I'm going to be saying for the next, I don't know how long. I think this one's a little bit smaller than the last time that I did this. Cut super well for this. Get rid of these two. Grab this one. Here you can see more clearly why I gave a little bit of a buffer for the space around the subject. I should have given it even more than that, but you can see the black line that pops up here. And it's also why I was like, didn't want to have that on every copy of the image that was being cut. There's a chance that I might have placed this a little high up. I might need to add some tape at the top at the end, but I will face that when it comes down to it. I might have been better off placing this just a little bit lower, but now it's too late. These are tweezers I got with like iPhone repair toolkit, or like electronics repair kit. And I was actually using it to open up some iPod Nanos that I had bought on eBay. Pretty cheap. You can get them for like $12 nowadays. Depends what generation they are and what state they're in, but you can get them pretty cheap. The ones that tend to be a little bit pricier in that space are ones that don't lose you. There are certain generations of iPod classics that the software on them, for whatever reason, with updated flash memory that people have customized, they're able to store an unlimited or a much larger number of songs within the software library stuff or something. Where some older ones you can install like 2 terabyte drives on them, or 2 terabytes of flash storage, but the overall library only supports like up to 50,000 songs, which you can fit more than that on multiple terabytes of flash memory. So I was curious about that and like looking into updating one, but then the amount of money that you have to also invest into buying the hardware necessary to connect the flash storage within the iPod housing. It's too much. You can buy large capacity media players for relatively cheap, but a lot of the interfaces are pretty bad. But a lot of them are just like whatever flash storage that you're willing to commit to on an SD card. You can buy an SD card and then replace it, and then as they get cheaper and larger, expand that memory, but the interface is not as refined as what you get with iPods that have a satisfying interface despite having just like a single button happening there with a click wheel. A fair amount of it for me is also nostalgia. My iPod still works well. So this one is going here. I still use it, and it has a number of songs and albums that aren't available on streaming. Depends what sort of animation you're going into. Question is, let me finish this. These 4 bits, flip the tape, and then I'll come and answer your question in great detail. Okay, I'm trying to learn animation myself. Do you think learning from online is enough with more practice, or college is better? Depends on how you learn. I didn't go to college for animation. I went to college for graphic design, which informs a lot of my animation. And I appreciated the time that I had there. It's not entirely necessary for what I do now, but I also can't really definitively say that because there are things, ideas, practices that I learned during that time that I'm like, that's not animation, but did really inform aesthetics and practices, so depends. I know people who went to college and are successful. I know people who went to college and are unsuccessful. I know people who didn't go to college and are successful. I know people who didn't go to college and are not successful. It's really depending on how you work, what you're going for. But like any good studio isn't gonna choose what you're doing based entirely on the fact that you went to a college. It's a good in if you are trying to build a network because it's an establishment. It's an institution, depending on the college. But other than like an opener, and maybe if the person went to that college, they might have some questions or like just to create a relationship and build it that way. And some colleges have sort of a built-in reputation for being good or bad or what. But it's just sort of how it goes, which isn't probably the answer that you're looking for. You're probably looking for a yes, go to college, no, don't go to college, but it's whatever. Also, now that I'm a little bit older, it's been 8 years since I graduated. Coming up on 8 years. And I would have, if I were to take classes now or go to college now, I'd have a completely different experience and get different things out of it. I would probably be a bit more committed to the class structure and I'd be take it a little bit more seriously, but I don't know if I would necessarily learn more. But you can also wait to go to college. There's no steadfast rule that you have to be a certain age to be enrolled. Well, you have to be of a certain education, but you can't really know what you did or didn't learn from an experience and what, like, where you'd be without your entire experiences leading up to where you end up. This game. Continuing on this journey of placing things. This is here. You can start to see more of the structure of like my shoulder coming up in this next section here. I'm actually gonna jump up in this direction a little bit because my hair is a part of this. These are just white blank diamonds. Trim this just a little bit tighter. When it gets to the end of that page, it's harder to put pressure and keep it flat, especially when you have multiple layers of the paper. And so you can push down as hard as you'd like, but you'll probably end up with some slight curvature and inconsistence. So as you drag that paper and you cut it, it becomes weaker. It has less that it's connecting to that sort of starting point. And so the paper pulls as you're dragging the blade across it. So you might have to make some little adjustments here and there. It's a little bit awkward. Is there anything on these guys? I think I can get away with not including that. Okay, I'm gonna move down. The sharper your blade, the less it should drag as you're cutting, which you might need to refresh your blade if you're doing this every now and again. Paper is supposed to be pretty bad for dulling blades. I don't know how many X-Acto blades I've gone through in my lifetime, but it's always nice to have a fresh blade. It's the sort of thing that it dulls over time as you're working with it, and so you don't necessarily realize how dull it comes across. Most of the 2D animation that I've learned came about from working with Flash when I was younger, and then self-taught things over time. If you're just like getting a little bit into 2D animation, rotoscoping is a really nice way to get into it, because you start to learn how there's a bit of a disconnect between what you think something should be drawn like for movement and how it actually works. And if you're looking at actual stills of video or film as isolated pieces, you start to realize that they're a lot less in focus, a lot less clear, or a lot more blurred. The motions of it's not like a still photograph where you're looking at it as a still image existing in a space. You're looking at a combination of things. And you start to learn, if you're rotoscoping and tracing over those distorted versions of something, you start to learn more of how an animation is a collection of pieces. It's a lot of pieces of a whole. It's not just all super clean, super clear stuff, at least for the practice that I have with animation. There are some people who do make it very crisp and clean, but I don't like that aesthetic myself. It tends to look artificial to me. Depends on your frame rate. And various other things. You can also, something that was very helpful for me was looking at animation that I liked frame by frame and seeing how those things worked and different tricks and stuff that looks exaggerated or weird or misshapen. Or how things look more lifelike or not lifelike. If you're looking to do a more narrative, two-dimensional animation sort of thing, it's likely that you'll be part of a team. Generally with animation, you'd be part of a team, and that's something that didn't really appeal to me when I was younger, and still doesn't really appeal to me, but that's one reason that I didn't go to school for animation. I went to school for graphic design, because I was like, I can do this on my own. That was part of the reasoning behind it for me. Let's go for this one and then go from there. So I'm gonna do this guy. The other thing I was thinking with if you're going to school for animation, you can also learn more of how things are structured for professional animation teams. I'm not super familiar with that aspect of stuff, but it becomes advantageous if you have that information in the field and you can communicate clearly to other folks. I'm something of an independent, not entirely anomaly, but not the typical thing that would come about for defining someone as an animator or something. Grab these that were pulling out a bit. Okay. Now let's go up a spot. Okay. And Moving down. So maybe you can start to see a little bit more clearly. If you look at this sort of shape, it's the same shape over here. It curves a little bit because of the fact that it's done by hand, just human error. But you can see this shape, but it's just 4 times larger. It's twice as tall, twice as wide. And so that's what's happening is you have 4 copies of the same thing rearranged into a larger pattern of 4. And the inconsistencies create varying degrees of distortion, but it's almost like squinting at something. If you squint at it, then it starts to blend together, making different combinations of things. So let's keep cutting. There you go. Just keeps going. This is the sort of thing that I probably wouldn't have had the... I might have, but I'm more patient than I used to be. But I would have taken varying shortcuts, or probably just would have done this digitally in the past and found the things that now I find more endearing and interesting about it. I might have identified them as limitations. So that's part of getting older and exploring varying processes, different approaches. With this, I'm also curious about when you get up close and intimate, especially in the scan of it, you see the pattern of the printing. Something that I was not aware of when I was younger is how printing works and how the image is approximated as opposed to straight up recreated when it comes to pretty much any printing, but digital printing on your computer, offset printing, unless it's a relief thing. That's like, here it is again. What you actually have is not dissimilar in concept to these patterns. that are recreating an image in a different format. Because when you have these, you've got hundreds of thousands of millions of dots that are offset in size and position to recreate an image. So if you get real up close on this, you start to see all these offset little dots. That when you look at it at a distance, it has meaning, and the fact that it's all these little pieces together, sort of lost. It just is understood to be what it is. I think one of the first times I was more aware of that was when someone asked me. I had a general understanding of how images were stored, and I had been like working in Photoshop for a little bit, but I was still in high school. So it would have been like 16, 17 maybe, around that age. And I had a job, maybe I was 18, but I had a job at a business office where I just did filing and stuff like that. But someone who worked there knew that I could do some like graphic work or photo work sort of stuff. So they had this certificate from their church or something like that, and they wanted me to update the file and change it. But all they had was a printed out copy of the certificate, and it just was like a certificate of graduation, or like graduation or congratulations, something like that. It wasn't. Anyway, and they had printed it, I think just like on a standard laser printer, but I had no concept of how those were functioning. Just like, cool, printed out thing, looks great. So I took it home and I scanned it, and I scanned it at a high resolution because I was like, I need to get this a high enough resolution for print resolution, which I knew to be 300 dpi. And I scanned it, but when I zoomed in, all I could see were all these little dots combining together, and I'm like, this isn't what I thought it was, because I had, by that point in time, worked some in Illustrator and stuff like that, and I'm like, if you're printing a graphic sort of thing, you should probably make it vector-based so that you can upscale it to any degree, downscale it, and there's no loss of information because it's based on lines, not on pixels. But when I zoomed in on this thing, I was like, oh, this is different. And then I had a stronger understanding of limitations of different printing methodology. I edited it and it was fine because they just were like printing it on whatever printer, so any work that I did that wasn't along that grid of the printout just it went fine. Let's go to this one down and then I'll work up because I'm at a loss. I'm confused as to where I am a little bit. So we'll go this guy. This one is right here. And we'll move down.
sticky sounds. Working towards kind of averaging out. My sort of offset bits in these spaces. I just lined up pretty nice so I can see that it had been. I'm probably gonna have to add some tape up top because along right here it's actually not sticky. Work our way down. I think the blade's going a little bit, but I'm gonna just keep working with it as is. It's not dull, but it is not as sharp as when I started, but that makes sense, because if you look at how many things I've cut, you can be like, yeah, that's a lot of little pieces. Working like this also makes me appreciate how much information exists in like an LCD display. It's a crazy amount of information. For breaking it down into each individual pixel as a value, 3 colors. I don't see any real sense of orientation with this section. Put some more tape. Switch out the tapes. Where's my tape? Tape, 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 tape. Okay. Keep on going. I'm not sure. I'm going to take a break because I need to use the restroom. So I will be right back.
back.
Does now. Separate up. There it is. I opened my window. It's a bit warmer in here. And it surprised me to hear a bird fly outside because it was louder than I expected it to be. Surprised. Getting closer. Still have a bit to go, but I think if I do this again, I might make the diamonds a little bit larger. Because in my mind I was like, this will take like an hour, but it's been 2.5. Guess I don't really need this section. I can get away with jumping down 2 sections. Getting close to being done. Don't believe my overhead light is on. Nope. Turn that on in a second. It's like it's ambiently darker than it was. That's good. think that's good. Looks good to me. Okay, I'm gonna cut this down, just sort of freehand. Won't be perfect, but it will work. This is a little bit more detailed later on. Here, somewhere. Oop. Floppy. Okay, let's scan it and then I can show more of the details on it. for scanner. And 1200. Okay. I'm going to weigh this down a little so that it's a little bit better of a scan. And flip this bad boy over. And that's 100%. I'm going to up the contrast a little bit. Just mostly making it darker. Let's just make it generally a bit more contrasty. Not quite so much. Okay. Let's crop this down slightly. A bit of room up top. Make sure the sides aren't right. Sometimes when you scan things you end up with a bit of a shadow around the edge because it's not a perfect bit. Let me see this scan edited. And then some resizing a bit. Make this 4. Three. Two. Now let's go here. Yeah, you can see that moraying happening. Turn off Photoshop and switch out image slideshow. This was actually the last time that I used this. Get rid of those. Add some files. Files. 5 designs. 4 of 6. 1 through 4. Rearrange 8. Nope. Already got the order going. Okay. There that is. And that was a slightly more formal tutorial for making this diamond cut sort of guy. I'm gonna take a moment to just clean some of this up. Because I don't want it here right now. A little better than having a sticky surface in its face. Nope. I was like, why is that audio? And the answer was, I didn't make my phone quiet. That's playing. I guess it was just generally quiet. I did not hear any other. No, I'm gonna do it this way. Get these larger sections up. Click whatever bits. And then clean up the rest of these. Sweeping them over. So I'm not gonna grab some of these other just bits of things that I have. That would do well to be cleaned up. Okay. Spiel time. If you want to buy the, there, I'll grab it again. If you want to buy this artwork or other artwork that you've seen me make, or that you want to buy a shirt, various things of that nature, you can buy stuff from me. You can go to traceloops.com/store and make purchases of various items, merchandise, stuff and things. If you want to watch this stream in full and previous live streams, you can go to youtube.com/traceloops. You can also view some various
just videos that I have that are medium to long form of different variety. There's a bunch of live stream recordings there, time lapses, and some other process-based things that you can go and enjoy. If you want to follow me on other platforms, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I am Traceloops on both of those. That's TRACELOOPS, no spaces, all one word. If you want to purchase something and have it shipped outside of the US, or if you have general questions, want to commission something, things of that nature, you can email me, and that email address is traceloops@traceloops.com. You can also, if you have general questions or want updates, things like that, you want to chat with other people who are interested in this sort of artwork, share your own artwork, you can join my Discord server. Link is in the chat. I think that's all that I have set for today. One more thing. I'm just gonna grab this bit and draw. Here, hide this for a moment. Zoom in and see where it ends up, right about here. We're gonna draw something that's representative of today's artwork. And then put that away. So let's just do it's always impressive to me how quickly I feel like I lose the ability to draw diamonds or something. And one more nose. And that is, today is the 6th, 4/6/21. Smaller diamonds. And what gets to go into a capsule. And that capsule gets to go into my vending machine. So first, let's just do a little fold on this guy. Just enough to fit in here. So now it's in the capsule. Capsule's locked up. Capsule goes in here. Every new design goes into the vending machine. It's limited at the moment. There's like 6 in there, but I've been doing this for just a couple weeks, like 2 weeks. And so, anyway, on Saturday, I will draw a new design out of here and make it available on a t-shirt, which you can buy in that aforementioned web store, traceloops.com/store. So, this is today's, and there it is up close. Thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. Thursday I'm going to be skipping. Friday it'll probably be a quicker guy. And then come back Monday. Next week it'll probably be shorter sort of streams. I'll probably be doing more illustrations because of other stuff I have that I'm doing. But appreciate you watching. Be back tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sorry that I started a little bit late today. I was prepping some of these files and printing them, and there's a little bit of inconsistency with what's on screen, and my printer prints a bit dark. Anyway, thanks for watching. Be back tomorrow. Adios.